Please don't kill me after this video. Nevi, welcome to the green room. Basically my brother's room because it has good lighting, even though it's just on one side of my face. We're here for one more review of another season of Voltron, this time the 7th season. Remember how I said I didn't like to do reviews? Well, like to make reviews about that. So before actually beginning our review, I just want to give out some warnings. Obviously the spoiler warning, if you didn't watch the 7th season of Voltron, please, for the love of God, don't watch this video unless you really want to get spoiled. Next, I have to say that this is only my opinion. I am up for more opinions, so nothing I'm going to say is absolutely correct or incorrect, so no percos tribeiras, okay? I really have to say that I watched this season twice, because on the first time I watched it in a way that I'm not used to. I binge watched this season. At first I was really enjoying it, but at some point it started getting really confusing and started getting really tired, and it didn't end up going as well as I thought. And that's because I have some attention span issues, and at the end of 4 episodes I'm already out of this world. I'm not focused anymore, so I'll never do it again, I promise. And then I watched it again to make this review, and even though there were some things that I still didn't like, obviously, it was really different. Now that you've been warned, here we go. I put everything on my phone. Everything is in here, so I'm sorry if I'm going to look at it too much. On the first episodes, a lot of things happened, so I'm just going to like enumerate all of those. The first one was a funny one, mixed with some stress caused by the Shiro situation. Thank God it was a funny one, because the last season was so tense. We can already see a super strong relationship between Keith and Krolia just by that look, which will show its whole glory later on. Keith punches Griffin on the face and wants to beat the hell out of him. Still sour over Griffin. Hunk and Rommel build a very cute connection. They almost think in the same way, and I really like that. I think that is very cute. When Karan said, "Watch out for that brat!" I completely lost it. How ridiculously funny is that? And we have the little Adam reveal. I didn't want to begin with this subject, but it's the first one that popped up, so in my opinion you could notice the intention of showing that they are a couple, but it wouldn't feel canon if they didn't announce it before. I believe, and it's been said, that it wasn't the creator's fault for not being able to show much representation. I almost immediately thought they weren't given as much freedom as they wanted, because things like that have happened in my country, for example with the Sailor Moon kiss, which is just ridiculous. But following this point of view, telling us that Shiro is gay before the season premiered was probably the smartest thing to do if they couldn't get it out in any other way. After watching the season, I was a little underwhelmed with the representation, like many people were, and yes, our hopes were lifted a little way too high, but at least we kinda got it. Well, now, about Adam's death. Don't kill me for saying this, but I don't mind it. And it shouldn't get in the way of the LGBT representation, even though it does get in the way of a big part of it. When it happened, tears aside, I was like, did you guys really do that? That was a little bit of an asshole move, wasn't it? I like that. Yes, maybe I'm just an asshole too. Some say Shiro is being way too tormented. Well, I say it is just realistic. Adam said, don't expect me to be here when you get back, and we were waiting for a super emotional re-encounter between those two, but this is war. Like Shiro, people die in the battle, lose significant others, get permanently injured, for example, him losing his arm. He had to use all the strength he could to overcome Adam's death in the middle of that hostility, which didn't provide us a very special mourning either, even though he's just a human. This was and is a reality, and these events were really effective in making us feel the emptiness and injustice that predominates in war context. I know we are all mad, but if you want to blame anyone for killing Adam, blame Admiral Sanda and her orders, okay? I'll talk about her in a second. Now, let's rewind to the first episode. I actually started crying when it was revealed that they were going to take 3 decapheeps to get to Earth. No, not to get to Earth. The time that passed without them noticing. Because I thought that was like 30 years and I was like, oh my god, they aren't going to see their families. They're probably going to be all dead. Hey, calm down. It's just 3 years. They were gone for just 3 years. We still have a wolf though, which got injured and must be protected. Cosmo saved our asses multiple times though. And why wouldn't the team trust Karan in getting them out of the trouble with the Galra? He also saved our asses multiple times before. And this time it did with a ding-dong headshot. Jokes aside, if Voltron survived, the rest of the universe still believes that Lotor survived. And I'm still included. Even though she didn't show up in person this season, Haggar is still out there at the moment destroying the Blade of Marmora. Skip forward to the end of the season and you find a new robot. Another one. Sapping and using Voltron's energy just like the Komar did, one of Haggar's weapons. Also, there's a beautiful Altaean inside it, which might have to do with Lotor's colony. I really want more from those two. After Lotor's disappearance, Ezor and Zethrid come fighting for power. In those 3 years, we don't know what the hell happened. And don't come at me saying that this isn't super lesbian coded. Is this LGBT representation once again? And did they kill them too? I low-key love Ezor. She's tragic. It was at this moment that I knew I was f***ed up.
I'm glad you survived too. It's no fun torturing a dead person.
And how dare they touch our precious genius Green Paladin. Lance was all up for saving her. The plant's garden must be so peaceful. On the other hand, Acxa is following another path. She's really pretty, a great fighter, and I love her, but let's talk about the juice, about the tea. Let's spill the tea about the thing that rocked the fandom. Kacxa. In my opinion, I don't see it coming. Maybe she is in love with him, according to what Ezor and Zethrid said, but Keith never showed reciprocity. He was like, can we just fight? I said in my previous video that Acxa had something on her mind with Keith, but so far they've only been returning favors, saving each other because that's the right thing to do. But let's look at things this way. She gave up fighting with the other 2 teammates to follow Keith, not even knowing if he was alive. Would she do it if it was just love? We see her again at the end, watching Keith and Krolia mourning his dad. If she did it because of love, she would be kind of a stalker. The best hypothesis for me is that she might be part of their family or related in some way or have a past that involves them. In parentheses, I really don't mind Kacxa shipping, but I don't think it would make so much sense in canon. Now we get to the feud. I'll leave this episode later since it's a filler, so since we're talking about Keith, let's talk about his mom. Remember that last video I mentioned that Keith never called his mom as mom, but in this season he calls her mom and even says that he loves her. She'll be gone again because of the blades, which is crazy, I know. And she knows it too. But it's fine, okay? She's back in this season anyway. And now we jump to one specific episode, which is The Journey Within. I really like this episode because it's very simple, but incredibly heavy at the same time. The Paladins are in the middle of nothing with no supplies. The only thing they have is their suits and they're each other's company. I was a little uncomfortable when they left the lines behind with people inside it. Nevertheless, watching the manifestation of their relationships in a harsh and maddening situation is fascinating. A lot of the fandom's reactions had to do with Keith being too mean, but he was clearly going mad. What I liked the most was seeing how the mind betrays itself when all of the things Keith holds back amount to all of this situation and just get out. And he's already having hallucinations. It touches the Lotor aspect and leadership aspect, which upsets not only Allura but the rest of the team, they are all scared, as Hunk said. Allura and Lance reply with the fact that Keith ran away because they were the ones that were most affected by it. And I empathize with Keith when he said, "Are we some chosen saviors?" Because in that situation, I would ask the exact same thing. Because I tend to question those things a lot. How can someone be meant to something, and how can something be so convenient? Anyways, Hunk is the one keeping his sanity. Oh, Hunk, we have so many things to talk about him. This episode turns into the summary of teamwork, showing how to overcome the things that tend to rip apart a team. And after Keith apologizes, their mutual trust, the real team spirit, recharges the lions. This season focused a lot in the spiritual aspect of things. And, okay, it's time. Let's not forget this season includes Hunk's arc. We were expecting a lot more focus on Lance's re-encounter with his family because he was constantly feeling homesick. But Hunk was the one missing his family the most this season. And guess what? His family is enslaved in a Galran work camp. How convenient. Because of this, we could finally know more about our precious, strong, loving, and reliable Yellow Paladin. We even got to see Keith getting out of his comfort zone, going to talk about him, and in my opinion, he was the one most suited to do so. Because not only he's the current leader of Voltron, he also didn't have a family when he needed one. I absolutely love when we get a character arc, and the things which stood out with Hunk's were his emotional side and his strength. He cried and was filled with sadness, but that gave him even more motivation to keep going and continue the mission, reinforcing its connection to the lion, the team, his family, and even himself. Now on 2 episodes, we get an ellipsis to when Sam Holt gets to Earth. His wife, Colleen, is a freaking badass. Like the whole family, by the way. What gets in the way is Admiral Sanda. I kind of understood her point of view at first. She didn't want to put the Earth in danger, but when that happens, she shouldn't be a little tell the world what's going to happen, god damn it! Fortunately, the Holt couple is a badass and is able to unite people all over the globe. But after some events and trying to find an immediate solution, she seeks it in the enemy. She goes for Sendak. She helps him. But when they find out and she's about to pass away, that's when the storyline gives her justice. Even though she betrayed us, Sanda must have all the respect. Her despair and grief was very painful to watch. The creators of the show did a really great job showing us her side of the story. Not just turning her character into an ingenuine, stubborn leader holding a weak apology. And so the tears roll down our faces. Sanda Sendek. Besides Sanda, we got to know a whole lot of new characters, including the new MFE pilots Griffin, Kincaid, Rizavi, and Life's daughter, who beyond being super good looking, have incredible ability. And each of them is very different, and I really like that. Oh, let's not forget about our powerful, fabulous Veronica. But let's change the topic a little bit. Let's talk about how it feels to have the Galra on Earth. Seeing their ships on our planet feels a lot weirder, and I was getting goosebumps when they were losing global communication. On the first time I was watching it, I was already tired and confused with all of the things that I didn't catch up to. So I was getting the feeling of, oh, so this is another cliche aliens attack Earth thing. But on the second try, I was like really into it. Obviously the task was to get to Earth, but the Galra moved ahead, so an invasion would be inevitable. And Voltron had a very effective stimulus to make us question war. I started thinking about how the Galran bases would stay on Earth and be like a stain from war, and the aspects of the underground resistance and work camp, those things were also brought up. Because even though it's a kids show, it is not just a kids show in a way, because this is real, it's a reality, it was and still is. And I guess I don't even need to talk about when the paladins get to Earth. Oh, and I'll admit it, Sendak is pretty good. I guess now it's time we turn to the bombing tea. I don't bother too much about ships while I'm watching the show. Sometimes it tends to cloud our vision. But at this point, let's talk about Klance. But First, I want to give a little word about ships. Every ship is valid if it doesn't hurt anyone. Just because it's not canon or doesn't have any chance to be so, you shouldn't give up on it or give hate. Personally, I don't mind my ships being canon at all. I like to see how the show develops by itself and still be able to let my imagination flow with something that will probably never happen, but who cares? I know I'm being boring, so let's continue to Klance, okay? A lot of people were saying Keith was being very mean to Lance this season, even after they built a very strong bond, especially after the "we are a good team" moment. Always in our hearts. When they were lost in space, Keith was crazy, just like the other members of the team. And I think that's just self-explanatory. But still, Lance is always his right arm man during this whole season. Keith trusts Lance and Lance always covers Keith's back. And that moment when he says, "Don't miss," he wasn't being an asshole, he was just kidding. And I feel like those kinds of things make Lance feel more confident in himself. So the very nice bond they have, even though people say it's not been as evident as it was in the first seasons, it is still there. We were well fed with a lot of sharpshooter action. He's so talented and I love when he has time to shine and show all the development he's been through, because we were so hooked to the idea that Lance misses his family a lot. And it is a big one. We were expecting a super touching re-encounter filled with tears, but that really didn't happen. And I was a little sad, but hey, the tears were there, the tight group hug was there too, we got to know Hunk Lance, even though it wasn't in the incredibly impressive way we were expecting. They decided to leave the spotlight to Hunk and his family, which just makes sense since it's his arc. Speaking about family, that moment when Lance accepts death while protecting Veronica. Let's just analyze the consequences of his possible death. First of all, he would die, obviously. Then they wouldn't be able to form Voltron, possibly. Then Earth would be doomed, the human race would perish, and peace would be a very distant hope. And let's not forget, Allurance gave its signs of life and I was like, are you kidding me? Don't get me wrong, I respect the ship and I ship it too. What about last season when Lance had to move on from Allura because accepting that sometimes we can't have what we want and we have to look for what we need? And she was heartbroken because of Lotor. This feels rushed. Why pop this out of nowhere? But on the other side, I feel like it's not really out of nowhere. Allura was really impressed with how Lance was so mature and supportive last season with the Lotor situation. She certainly looks at him with other eyes. And Lance, what if now he can have what he wants since day one? Honestly, I don't really have a settled opinion on this aspect, but what I know for sure is that if Allurance turns into a reality, I'm going to be a little bit bitter, but I'm going to support it and see how it develops. Even if that conflicts with my love for Lance, I don't mind. To close this, Lance doesn't really want to admit his feelings when he's around his family. When he's around Veronica, he gets really embarrassed, and I guess that's just how he behaves around his family, which is super cute. Like, imagine if the family doesn't know he's a lover boy. How funny would that be? Alright, since we talked about Lance, let's talk about Keith. One of the most beautiful moments was when both Iverson and Keith apologized to each other. To add to that, Griffin feels uncomfortable. I wouldn't say uncomfortable, but kind of envious or jealous. Keith doesn't really give it much importance. But Griffin, he's a whole snack. He has the talent, he has the ability, AJ voices him. I don't know what's up with AJ and characters with loose hair strands. I'm still a little bit sour over the thing that Griffin had with Keith in the beginning of the season. Am I? Anyways, we were talking about our red boy. Okay, focus. Patience yields focus. He has a strong connection to the Black Lion. He has been reinforcing it for quite a while, especially last season when going after Shiro. And Shiro is like, connect with the lions, and I'm like, yes, I know Shiro, why don't they think of that? You could see they were all tired because of that little line under the eyes that is just a line but makes all the difference. I really like the fact that Even though this is supposedly a kids show, this wasn't all, yay, we saved Earth, oh my god, finally, peace, woo! This was no fairy tale. This was a delirium of tension. And y'all say it's badly written? How many times did we think they died this season? Overall, there was a good balance between the screen time of Voltron, MFE, and the Atlas. Even though so many things happened, it was confusing for my distracted brain. We could be focused on Voltron, see the strength of the MFE, and the intense environment going on at the garrison. And I must say, Holt's frustration must be massive. Not only he feels impotent in many situations, he's also one of the reasons why the Galra are so strong. That messes up with my mind. It's finally time to talk about our resurrected savior. Captain Shiro is the best thing that could have happened this season, and we owe him so much for that. At that point, the Altain crystals are fighting on their own for peace. It's like they have their own will, and when Kuran remembered he had a crystal on his neck, I was like, really, Kuran? You are? But look at our leader. Out of options to defeat Senek, and what does he decide? I'm going there personally. Not only we had Bluetooth lions and his arm, we also had a Bluetooth arm fight on top of a crashing ship. And you'll say this show is badly written? Now that's a well-written story, goddammit. What I think happened during the big energy moment was that the Altean influence or quintessence inside Shiro, along with the power of bringing people together, which is more energy, together with the crystal's quintessence and the Black Lion's energy, made him have that epiphany and turned the IGF Atlas into a huge thick robot. Another robot. And so we get to the end of the season. It almost felt like it was the definite end of the show, but a lot of things are still left to be touched. We saw many things in the final episode that I must mention. Matt is looking hella fine. He has a girlfriend. Shay is back. Krolia is back too. They are already building a new castle. Is this what peace feels like? But this won't last long. We know that. Finally, let's talk about the feud. Yes, if you move your mouse or touch the screen, you can see that there's still a lot of time left because, yeah, I'm still going to talk about some more things, but don't worry. I love this episode even though they were calling Lance dumb all the time. But in these types of shows, I think there's always someone they need to call dumb. I know it's ridiculous, but that's how it works, and Lance was the most fitting for that, not because he's an idiot, but because of his funny personality. We know for sure he's not an idiot. Even Keith agrees on that. That aside, they went overboard to make this episode look exactly like a TV show. Even the commercial breaks were amazing. Honestly, I was a little sad that Lotor didn't make his way back to this season. But hey, he was in that episode, showing us how emo he is. And as funny as they were, the family interactions were very mean and concerning. The poor boy is just a frustrated artist, come on. Something I'm curious about is to know how many Bebo Bees Jeremy Shada had to record. And the golden moment was when they were asked who's the brainiest of the team, and Bitch just raises her hand. A legend. To end this topic, I know it was probably a little unpurposed, but thank you for some Klance action to our hearts. I screamed a lot, you don't even imagine. This is the happiest moment of our life. Ah! Enough. Let's finish this long-ass video with more technical aspects. First of all, the voice acting keeps on surprising me. Also, the visuals are very good. And we were given a lot of good scenarios in the season. I'm going to just show you some of my favorites. Even monsters were gorgeous. Some say they noticed some improvements on the animation, and we have moments like these to show that. We have camera shakes and all, but one of my favorite scenes was this one, because it's not showing us what happened explicitly, but it conveys it perfectly. To finalize, the soundtrack was amazing, like usual. So overall, this season there were things I liked that made me scream, that made me cry, laugh, and some that made me scrunch my nose. And any show is just all about that. getting the message across somehow in different ways for different people. Obviously, I will keep loving Voltron as a whole, and I still expect a lot from them. I've always liked how the story develops, just as the characters. I don't mind if my ships don't make it, or if some things feel rushed. Nothing is perfect. And I'm willing to see how this whole thing that began in 2016 will come to an end. It feels sad. It's going to be the last time we're going to wait for a new season. But yeah, it's time to come to an end. So as this video. So I hope you liked this little review. Right now, I'm dying because of the BTS album, which is very good. I know it has nothing to do with what I just talked about, but yeah, just know that. I'll see you someday, I don't know when, because holidays are messy. So, adios!